guys, you're welcome to the most entertaining podcast. My name is Olu Adebari, but you could just call me Barry. I'm a professional sports broadcaster. I've worked TV, radio, podcast as well, YouTube, and yeah, I'm now here on the most entertaining podcast. With me, I've got um, Olu Oke, is the host of the weekly Nigerian UK-based podcast. And I've got also the producer of TME here with me in the background. I've got Aanu Omorodion. How you guys doing? Olu?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me. Always happy to talk about football, and I guess switch up from not just talking about Nigerian footballers, but we all watch Premier League. So excited to be on. And yeah, anybody on here, check out Nigerian Football Weekly.
That's what's up. Anu?
Fantastic, my guy. How are you?
Very well, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I know and I've worked on something before in the past, so we're very familiar. Olu, I'm a big fan of yours. I watch your podcast from from afar. I think I saw the professional page first, and then yours. So yeah, I'm a big fan as well. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys today and to talk football.
I appreciate the
So
love. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
exactly, love guys. To the listeners today, basically we'll be rating, the season performance of every Premier League team, based on our expectations of them and where they are at the moment. And this is going to be interesting because I think this has been one of the most entertaining Premier League seasons, and I think some outcomes would be interesting to see. All right, then. And in the manner in which we'll be speaking about the teams and grading them, we would have three categories of grading. A is for the teams that overachieved. B is for the teams that just maintained status quo or had a little bit of an improvement. And then C is for those who underachieved, basically. Those who maybe were expected to be champions and maybe they were fighting, they got into a relegation battle, something like that. So that's our format for today. And yeah, let's get into it, guys. Um, so yeah, I think the Premier League champions, the crown Premier League champions, Liverpool. Um, Great season, if you ask me. Considering the fact that they had a new coach, and Slot, um, a relatively unknown coach when it comes to how popular football is, especially when we're speaking about the top flight leagues. He was coaching a team in the Eredivisie, and the Eredivisie in Netherlands, with all due respect to them, it's not one of the top flight leagues, right? And then he came into Liverpool on the foundation that has been built by Jurgen Klopp, and he was able to win the Premier League trophy after Jurgen Klopp had a very, very, should I say, mid end to his tenure as Liverpool coach. So, how would you guys assess Liverpool this season under Anslot? Olu, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting one. Well set up. I think Onslaught has to. You have to give Liverpool an A for their season. I mean, I had an idea about Onslaught just because I have a few friends in Amsterdam, and I remember I went to Amsterdam and an Ajax supporter. He was lamenting about the state of Ajax, and he was talking about this manager that Feyenoord have and how good he is, and we should all watch out because he's coming. So I had an idea that he was a good manager, but of course, as you mentioned, with the step up to the Premier League, the Eredivisie sits in between. I say after the top five, you probably put Eredivisie probably number 7 after the Portuguese league. So,
Correct.
Going to a new country, thankfully, Dutch people speak English. So the transition, at least from a language perspective, is very easy. But, when you see the kind of differences and the amount of work they had to do, it's not the easiest thing that he had to do. Um, so anyway, coming into a team that was challenging for the title last year, they faltered towards the end of the season, as you remember. I think you have to just, commend them for the excellent performance, especially when you consider that they didn't sign any real players that's going to move the needle. Chiesa was signed, but it's so sad to watch Chiesa. It's not the Chiesa from 4 years ago.
Mm.
So I think here we don't have to talk too much. They've run to the league title. It's been quite a few years since we've had such a dominant league win. The last few years it's gone down to the wire, you'd say, especially with Arsenal. But you just have to give Liverpool their credit, and just say that, what, exemplary season. Do I
Yeah.
think, obviously Mohamed Salah has to take a big credit for it, alongside Van Dijk. But make no mistake about it, this is a team that finished top of the Champions League Group 2. They were fortunate to lose to PSG, but I mean, 3 losses the whole season, and they only lost 2 of them after they'd secured the title, if I'm not mistaken. 25 wins, and they still have the ability to end up with 89 points, which I may add was what Arsenal's point total was last year. But at the end of the day, you have to face what's in front of you. So, A, A. In fact, if we could say A plus, I think you have to give Liverpool their credit. So shout out to them and what they've been able to do, and it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do in the summer in terms of regenerating their squad and plugging the gaps. We know Frimpong's coming in, but they have a hole in terms of their attack. Will Mohamed Salah be as productive? Will Arsenal and Man City have such a down season? I honestly doubt it. But full credit to the Liverpool boys. And we always forget Liverpool are a big club, but this is only their second title in 35 years. So massive, 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 massive kudos to Arne Slot and Liverpool. A plus for me, for sure.
Lovely, lovely. So A plus from Olu. Nice details there. You gave us a lot of intricate details in there, which basically, for me, those were like the pillars for the success of Liverpool this season. And yes, definitely A plus, well deserved. Anu?
So for me, I would say based on the expectations at the start of the season, I certainly would have thought they would finish like fourth, maybe at best third. So certainly the grade that I would give them would be an A plus also. Also, yes, because he's pretty much used the same team from like the last few seasons for this as well. And I'd say that's like the most impressive part, right? Is like a lot of like the managers these days say that they need to use like their own players, while he used the players from like the old coach and still managed to win the league. So yes, hugely, hugely impressive.
Mm, lovely. Yeah. In summary, I think we can all agree that Liverpool had a fantastic season. Um, for me, I think coming into the season, I felt they would struggle to make the top four. And for me, also considering the fact that I did not know much of Anslot, I felt that they did not make some signings that I felt were needed. I felt they were weak in midfield. I felt they were weak at right back. And yeah, Anslot basically just came in with his own philosophy and he was able to just make something tick for the team. So congratulations to Liverpool. They got an A plus on the TME podcast. So yeah, second place right now, the Arsenal. Um, for the third consecutive time, I think Arsenal finished second. Um, a pretty much underwhelming season because at the point in time it seemed like they were challenging for the big guns, talking about the UEFA Champions League and the English Premier League, and I'm sorry guys, I don't think I can hide the fact that I'm an Arsenal fan, so this is a bit difficult to try and reel through, and playing majority of the season without a recognized striker. You had makeshift strikers come in to try and do a good job. And when you needed the team to Plymouth the most, it just seemed to be going downhill. And it seems to be like a regular script for Arsenal fans, right? But coming into the season, I think I would be lying if I said, honestly, coming into the season, I wasn't expecting anything, but I was hopeful, sincerely speaking. And then I got hope when it seemed to be that Arsenal were really, really challenging and pushing through the Champions League, and I had something to hope for. And at the end of the day, considering different factors, injuries, considering ridiculous scores in the Premier League, I think it was an okay season for Arsenal. What would have been considered an A plus would have to be a trophy, and they didn't win a trophy. So for me, I think I'll just give Arsenal a B. Olu, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, nice to know you're an Arsenal fan too. So it looks like it's an Arsenal heavy pod. Just keep my thoughts succinct. I think we have to give Arsenal a B minus. To be honest, I'm glad you. I'm surprised in a positive way that you said you didn't have expectations. That was not me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Living in London, I was fully sure we would win the Premier League. In fact, let me not cast myself too much, but I was even looking at the team after getting 89 points and thinking next year we need to get 30 wins out of 38 games. Maybe we can draw 4 games and lose 4 games, and we'll take it there and move on. One thing we have to caveat is when we're even looking at Arsenal's performance, where look, we're a culture club, we're the London club, whether anybody likes it or not. So people like to speak on Arsenal no matter what. You see, yesterday, they said Man City won the Community Shield. But when it's Arsenal, they don't remember the Community Shield, which I find funny.
Exactly.
But when you look at it, at the end of the day, this is a team that only lost 4 games in the Premier League all season. So the clear regression has to come in those draws. I think we dropped points in games we were leading in about 9 or 10 Premier League games, which is almost unheard of for a team like Arsenal. We still have such a good defense. We still have the best defense in the Premier League, as far as I'm concerned. Slightly better than Liverpool, but we've clearly regressed. I think too many draws. If you're getting 14 draws, you're not winning any games. That has to be a big issue. Not being able to just solve problems. I think terrible squad planning. We could blame injuries and red cards, which obviously play a part, especially when you think about the injury of Saka for 3 months. And I think Gabriel's been missed over the last few months, even though Kiwior has stepped up nicely. That Gabriel leadership is something that has played a massive part in our downfall. When you look at us conceding from set pieces, we've really been bad at conceding from set pieces, which is not something we do, especially in the last 2 months. So I think we are able to use that as a slight excuse. But overall, I still hate the excuses in general because we've had options, we've had transfer windows to make these signings, and I think there's a slight arrogance with Arsenal that I don't like. If you haven't won a trophy in 5 years, you can't be turning your nose up as strikers. You can't go into a season when everybody's been saying for 2 years you should sign a striker, and then you're almost turning your nose up and being like, "Oh, we'll be okay." Then you're now complaining about injuries. My friend, we all play Football Manager. We know why you should have 2 good players in all positions. So don't come here and then cry to me that, oh, Saka got injured at one point, Odegaard got injured. It's part of football. If you have a season where most of your players do not get injured, it's a lucky break. So I really feel like even that B minus, you remain small. I'll say C. I won't lie to you, because this is a team that, if you ask most pundits in the world, everybody expected Arsenal to deliver and go from 84 points and 89 points to delivering the Premier League. And there's been a clear regression in performance. This is not a team that's as attackingly fluid. Only 66 goals scored. I think the previous season we got close to 90 goals, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, we scored 91. So, brother, I mean, let me try and do my quick maths. That's 25 less goals with 2 games to play. Whether you like it or not, that is massively significant. Forget set pieces or anything. There's been a clear regression from all players. Arteta, you can see the benefits of our defense, but you have to admit that apart from maybe Saka, how many attackers have you seen actually improve under Arteta year to year? The jury's out. I'm not here to put an agenda against my manager. But look, we also have to praise him that he's the reason that we now have these kind of standards that we expect. So finishing second is now something that pisses us off. And let's be honest, since the days when we were young, when we were watching Thierry Henry and co, that has not been the case. Wenger will be celebrating 4th place. So I just want to add that caveat. But overall, I think it's been a very disappointing season. Those dropping goals, I don't like the excuses. It really pisses me off. Arsenal could have signed Watkins. They decided to put a bid in on the last day of the January transfer window. It's insulting. You get what I mean? Then even now, when you look at the players we're linked with, I don't know whether Arteta doesn't like African players. I don't want to insinuate, but you're not looking at Osimhen. It's like, are you sick in the head? Obviously, I have a bias as a Nigerian, but what's going on here? So I think overall, we'll give them a B minus because they're still second. They've just announced the team lineups for the game in an hour. There's no Alexander Isak. I'm sorry, you have to beat Newcastle. I can't even believe Newcastle are in this position because I will let you. I wanted them to finish out the Champions League so we could test the waters with their star striker. But all in all, we take the good with the bad. But make no mistake about it, next year, you have to win the Premier League or the Champions League. We'll give kudos for what happened in the UCL. I think people have exaggerated how much PSG played us out of the park. I think in the second leg, we were the better team. But unfortunately, in both boxes, we were poor. Conceding those kind of goals or not taking our chances has led us to where we are here. But make no mistake about it. Excuses time is gone. But for this year, B minus and do better going forward. In fact, not hopefully, it has to be. So let's see. Big summer ahead.
Yeah. Just before Anu speaks, in hindsight, now listening to some of the points that Olu has made, I remember watching the All or Nothing Prime documentary, and there was a clip that was kind of elongated for a while, and it was basically the vision board that Edu, Ateta, and I think Vinay had together. And the vision board had that at the end of this current season, it was a 5 year plan. The vision board clearly showed to me that at the end of this season, Arsenal were either meant to win the Premier League or the Champions League. In hindsight, now thinking about that, I'm starting to feel like a C is valid at this point in time. Thinking about how the team regressed, in terms of goals, in terms of being very tight at the back, keeping set pieces, and I don't think we even utilize set pieces as much this season as compared to last season. Now I'm starting to think. I think I might just give Arsenal the C. Actually, I take it back and give Arsenal the C. So Anu,
So for the Gunners, to be honest, I'm probably the one person on the podcast who did not expect them to win the league. So
Interesting.
yes, yeah. So um, having to bake that into my grade, I would give them a B, just because the level of progress from like the past few years has been extremely impressive. The victory against Real Madrid was extremely impressive also. I think the manager has a lot of potential. The problem is it's still his first job, guys. It's still his first job. So he literally still has no experience. So,
6 seasons
um,
though. Can we say no experience
yeah,
after 6 seasons?
bro, it's still his
That's a
first job.
secondary school career.
I know. Fact. And with like the goals thing, I'm so glad that you said that because I had planned on. So perfect. Um, the striker thing, I'm like not really sure what the issue is. I think the manager has a problem with people who have like huge egos.
Oh,
The
clearly.
problem is, yes, the problem is when you're trying to buy a superstar, they're going to have a big ego.
Absolutely.
So,
That's what drives
yeah,
them.
exactly. Exactly. So, I think apart from like the signing of Rice, who who is a very good player as well, but he's not exactly like a superstar, right?
Mm, mm.
So I'm like really waiting to see this summer who they sign. Unfortunately, I think like they will sign like a younger striker when really they should be signing someone who's like a lot more established. So for my grade overall, I'm gonna give the Gunners a B.
Two against one. I think the verdict is out on that. I think it's a C from the TME podcast for us now, regarding how their season went. Yeah, so all the best to the Gunners. Hopefully, they are able to redeem their image and eventually um, humble the naysayers and their critics.
I'll be honest,
Um,
we're close. We're close. I
yeah,
don't think it's just look, you judge expectations based on your reality. If Nigeria had the GDP of Texas, I'm sure we'll be very happy. But Texas are probably looking at California like, hey, so
true,
I just want to
true.
caveat like it's just you've raised our expectations, you've introduced us to a vibe you have to maintain. So
True.
now we're just trying to say maintain it and give us to us what we expect. Simple. But
Yeah,
we move.
yeah, definitely. So, Andrea Berta, Michael Arteta, if you're listening to the TME podcast, do the needful. Do the needful. All right. So going to third place, I think it's Newcastle. Olu, is Newcastle
Yeah,
currently in third
Newcastle,
place?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Geordies, their first trophy in 66 years. Talking about them winning the Carabao Cup, it was fantastic for them. Um, I had a friend who went for the parade, and he got mobbed in sweat and beer, and he couldn't be happier. It was such a great time to be in Newcastle. The pubs were absolutely buzzing, the clubs were buzzing, and it's sometimes when you think about Newcastle and some of the players that have gone through them, the likes of Roberto Solano, Alan Shearer himself, Obafemi Martins, they've really, really had good teams. David Ginola was there at a point in time, and then you think to yourself that they were not just able to do more. They were not even. There wasn't even a time they were prolific in Europe. When they had those crop of players. But fast forward a couple of years down the line now, and they've been able to do it under Eddie Howe, which for me has been a very, very impressive manager since he took the helms at Newcastle. Let's keep in mind that this was their first season competing in the Champions League for a while. So this Newcastle team had to, balance competing in the Premier League and
That was
the
last year.
Champions
That was
League.
last year. That
That
was
was
last
last year. Okay, right. So their second season now, and currently they are in third position in the English Premier League. Um, I think that for a team that under Eddie Howe so far, considering the crop of players they have, considering um, injuries that they've had also, I think I'll give them a B plus. I think there's been an improvement this season. I think what is honestly um, evidence to me is the team management, the squad management in terms of keeping players fit, keeping players happy as well. I think for a team at this level, it's key, and I've seen that a lot from Eddie Howe and Newcastle this season. So for me, it's a B plus for Newcastle. Olu?
The Geordies, to be honest, I'll give them an A plus. No, A. I think people forget that this is only Newcastle's 8th season back in the Premier League. They got relegated. There's a time where they used to yo-yo. They hated life under Mike Ashley. They've had the
Yeah.
whole Saudi. They've had the whole Saudi takeover, which thankfully has not necessarily gone crazy. Thanks to PSR, because money speaks in football, you know. And then when you deal with a club that's in a one club city, we have a few in England, Newcastle, Leeds United. The passion and the fervor is just something that we don't see very often. Last season they finished 7th, they had 60 points, and now they're on 66. I expect Arsenal to beat them today, but let's say they even end up with 69 points or 67. You can still see the improvements. They've won 20 Premier League games, even more than Arsenal. They don't draw too many games, but they've lost 10. But when you look at the structure of their team, as you mentioned, their first title in 66 years, the vibes are clearly back over there. I love what you mentioned about the squad management. When you look at a player like Jacob Murphy with 12 Premier League assists and literally playing out of his skin, this is a player that, with all due respect, you wouldn't call him a Champions League caliber player. But when you look at the Newcastle team and what they've been able to achieve, you could even argue they have the best midfield in the Prem. Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and Joe Linton. Not many teams can say they have that kind of power or chemistry. The likes of Anthony Gordon, obviously, there's a crown jewel in that place that is entering my eye that we're trying to, collect. But I think when you think about the expectations for the team, they would have expected to get back, or at least try to challenge to get back to the Champions League. But for them to find themselves third right now with 2 games to go and to have a trophy in the bag, I think everybody has to definitely give them their credit. They have the 4th best goal difference in the Prem, just one behind Man City. So all in all, I think if a Newcastle fan thinks about this season, it's probably the best of their lives because they've not won a trophy. And, second or third, they'll play Champions League next year, likely. I'm still hoping if we beat them today, Everton can do something for me next week. But still, as at today, we have to give them their kudos and say it's been an A+ season. Even when Eddie Howe was out sick, they still got the wins coming in. And when a team gets to a point where they're able to win the games that you expect them to win, I think that's when they're beginning to show the caveats of being a really, 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 really good team or top team. So Newcastle, I think for me, I have to give them an A for this season they've had. But hopefully, what's the opposite of long may it continue? Hopefully it stops soon. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
Lovely, lovely. Aanu, over to you.
Okay, so for me, Newcastle, the grade has to be an A, of course. Um, right now they have 66 points. In the season that they went to the UCL, they had 71, so they're like 5 points off that. So had an amazing season, truly, with like the trophy and everything. Have a fantastic squad as well. Amazing striker. I still remember speaking to my friend in 2020 when the striker for the Gunners was still, I think it was
Aubameyang.
no, yes, and they had a few options for strikers. they could have gone for Jesus or they could have gone for Isaac,
Mm.
and they went for Jesus instead. And that was probably not the best idea in the world. Though I do like Jesus, of course. I mean, fantastic player, but he's not Isaac, is he? So, and also like shout out to the manager because he has done this with a few sides now in the Premier League. I still remember that in his in the in the side that he managed before
Bournemouth.
the yes for the Cherries. I'm pretty sure in like the first few seasons he was there, they finished in like the mid table and all that, right? So like
Yeah.
he like he like has a lot of experience in terms of taking smaller teams and managing to make them into like something like so much bigger, right? So yes, I'd say for their season it would have to be an A, 100%.
Mm. Mm. That's fine. So 2 against 1, the jury's out on that. So the Geordies had a very good season then. Due to the improvement, just like I also said, I think it's definitely valid that we rate them an A. Honestly, I'm not really looking forward to their continuous improvement because that just means they are an added threat to Arsenal's threats of finally becoming champions. But I think it's just always good to see, especially in the Premier League now, considering how competitive it is. I think number one, it's a good thing for English football to see English coaches that are really good. And Eddie Howe is one English coach that is absolutely outstanding. We've got Will Still I think he's left Rem now. I know he's
He
coaching.
left yesterday. Yeah, yeah.
He left yesterday exactly. So Will Still is another really good English coach. Liam Rossini at Strasbourg as well doing a
Mm.
fantastic job there. So I think for English football, it's good to see English managers that are really good. And then considering how competitive the Premier League is, to be able to manage your team based on what you've got available, I think big ups to Eddie Howe for that. So yeah, it's a good season.
I think the
Yeah.
scariest part is if they get their recruitment rights. I mean, not us now. We have bigger fish to fry. We're looking above
Yeah.
us, but it could be a bit of a challenge for the Prem because when you look at the structure of their team, you already have quite a good midfield. You have the Joe Willocks as backups.
Mm,
If they
mm,
can upgrade a Jacob Murphy, all of a sudden you have a forward line of Isaac Gordon and like an Embuemo, for example, and you're
exactly.
cooking. This is a team that's been trying to sign a centre back for 2 years. They tried to sign
Mm,
Margay to no avail. Sven
mm,
Botman, who's probably their best centre back, has been injured quite often over the past 2 years. So they're still playing Fabian Shaw, who's a
mm,
very, very good centre back. But you could see those improvements. And then you have Lewis Hall and Livramento, these young fullbacks. So you're looking at a team that, with just a few smart signings, could potentially keep the momentum. Although we all know that last year when they played in the Champions League, they obviously regressed to seventh at being able to handle
mm,
the pressure of playing, in both competitions. And then now
yeah.
with the additional games we're playing in Champions League, I'm hoping. Basically, you can tell I'm a big Newcastle hater. It's clear. Well, if they're able to, you know, build their squad,
Mm,
they may do it, but there's also the caveat that just the amount of games and what they're not used to could count against them next season. I don't like when teams like Newcastle think they could chat to Arsenal. It's like, mate, you have one trophy in 6 years,
mm.
not your level. And then from a harsh perspective, I still know that there's one pool that works for footballers, whether people admit it or not. Every footballer that has £100,000 in their pocket every week loves to live in London rather than
Mm,
Newcastle. So
mm.
I'm hoping that we can still see that benefit us. But let's just
Yeah.
say I'm quietly scared of what the Newcastle potential could be. Let's just put it that way.
So
So
for Newcastle, I think like the quickest way to stop the progress would be to snatch the manager because I think he's like the guy who really like
Mm,
holds it all together.
yeah.
Um, and speaking honestly, when Man United sacked Ten Hag, I was really hoping they would try to go for Howe because I think that would be a fantastic fit.
Mm. Fantastic fit, but then Eddie Howe, I think a major part of his success is at Newcastle is down to the backing. When you got a board that believes in you and would help you get the sort of players that you need to execute your football philosophy for you, I think it does really matter a lot. And obviously, Newcastle, number one, then had the good financial backing, and I think they've got a pretty decent scouting team, if you ask me. Because when you take a look at the caliber of players that they do go ahead to buy, I take a look at someone like Livramento. He was at Southampton. I think he came through Southampton, if I'm not mistaken, and Southampton, I
FPL
think,
legend.
eventually, yeah, I think they got
Yeah.
relegated, and then they snapped him up immediately. Lewis Hall was just breaking into the Chelsea side under Tuchel, and with the way things were going on at Chelsea, they quickly snapped him up as well. So I do like the talent ID. Not many managers would have thought to go ahead and sign Sandro Tonali from AC Milan. At that point in time, AC Milan was just getting back into ascendancy in terms of being one of the powerhouses in Serie A. I think the season after Tonali left was when they won the Serie A for the first time in a while. So
You
not
think so?
many.
You think so?
Yeah, I think when Tonali left, the season he left was when they won Serie A for the first time in a
Nah, I
long
think
while.
he won one. He won.
Yeah,
He did
yeah,
win
that's what
one.
I'm saying. That season, Tonali won it with them and then left, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that was the first real flex of Saudi power. To be honest, like there's
Yeah.
no reason the world should have allowed Sandro Tonali move
Yeah.
to
So their
Newcastle.
talent ID is good as well. So whoever is working with or for Eddie Howe as well, they enable him. But I think the problem is that at United, we know that there are some power struggles that are just there.
Also, the pressure
Um,
is just different. Like, no disrespect, but when you're the
mm,
Bournemouth coach and Newcastle coach, like, even as an Arsenal fan, we're football fans first.
yeah.
Manchester United is the most important club in England, whether you like it or
Mm,
not. It's the
mm,
biggest club in this country. It's no
mm,
longer, you could say it's no longer the most successful with this Liverpool 2020, but make no
mm.
mistake about it. By revenue, numbers, everything, importance to the culture, Manchester
Prestige.
United is Man
Yeah.
United. So
Yeah.
Eddie Howe, he could enjoy all this Bournemouth, Newcastle. No one Newcastle's ever gonna put pressure on him. So I
True.
think we have to remember that caveat, to be honest,
Mm,
because
mm.
bro, you come and play for an Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man United.
The pressure is on.
Pressure
Yeah,
is
the pressure
different,
is
bro.
on.
Different.
Pressure is on. Um, Talking about Arsenal, their London rivals, Chelsea. Chelsea finished in fourth position this season. For me, their first season under Enzo Maresca, I was expecting them to challenge for the title, if I'm being honest with you. Um, for now, because they are in the fourth position, I think it's still been a decent season. Massive improvement compared to their performance under Mauricio Pochettino last season. I think I have seen some players improve under Maresca. I think some players have stepped up and some players have fallen by the wayside. I do. Enzo Maresca is a good tactician, and I think he's a good coach. But I think one thing he's lacking for me is efficient squad management in terms of the rotations. He, I think he wasn't able to manage the expectations of players like Disasi, Joao Felix, these players that went out on loan. I do understand that players always want to play and they want more minutes, but I think he wasn't able to manage that for me. But nevertheless, they're currently in fourth position and then they're in the final of the UEFA Conference League. And I mean, up until probably the second leg semi-final, most of the players that deputized for Chelsea in the Conference League were like the team lead players or the fringe players. So kudos to him for trying to find that balance. So I think for me it's a B plus for Chelsea this season. Olu?
Spot on. Same for me. I was gonna say B plus. I think when you look at they've already exceeded their points tally from last year. Even though they ended the season quite well. You know, yes, this is a team that in the first 10 games we saw them raising their shoulders, saying they could challenge for the title. But of course, all their fans were quick to tell us that they don't really think they'll be title challengers. You know, when you look at their squad, it's interesting to see that exactly what's happened with Maresca last year, where he was Leicester's manager, has happened to him this year. You know, he has a fantastic first half of the season, blows things out of the water. Everyone's really impressed. But then from January to May, it's a bit of a, can we say, stumbling road. Let's just say there's like a few stumbling blocks on the way, you know. The Palmer regression is clear to see. You know, Nicholas Jackson's injuries and stuff like that has also played a part. So I hear you on the squad management. But I think overall, this is a team that's in transition with quite a lot of young players. One of the big benefits of Maresca is what's happened with their midfield. You know, when you look at the performances of Enzo Fernandez and Moses Caicedo, who Arsenal obviously wanted to sign. So there's a lot of like good shoots there. Colwell has had a strong season, you know, but overall they find themselves fourth with one game to go. Already exceeded the games tally. Yes, they play Nottingham Forest away, so they could still end up seventh. And they've also had the interesting, weird season of having to play Conference League, which, let's be honest, it doesn't happen for the top six often. So it's quite a strange one. If it's Europa League or the Champions League, you have to play your big boys. But maybe we should even dock them a point for that, because if you're playing the Conference League, that means you're playing your backups all the time. You know. So, but I think all in all, like considering where they were and where they are now, I'll give them a B plus too. And I genuinely think if I was Chelsea today, allow all these Premier League teams continue to turn up their nose at a star striker, African guy, and telling us that his wage demands. In what world have you ever seen anybody say that star players should reduce their wages? But they say the Nigerian striker should reduce wages. Is everybody insane? But I'm telling you, there's a road right there where I see Chelsea just being like, you know what? Sorry for last year, man. Here's your wages. Here's your contract. Come to us. But for this season, definitely a B plus on what we've seen so far. And they should win the Conference League in 10 days' time.
Anu, over to you.
So for the Blues, I am gonna grade them a B because they have gotten their highest points tally rather since 2021-22. So they have had a fairly impressive season. They have more points than they did last season. I think with Poch they got 63. Now they have 66. I think with the Maresca thing, I think the problem is more so with his tactics. I think past the Christmas period, he may have gotten a bit found out because
Mm.
he's not really a manager that is known to really change much. Even, excuse me, the fact that he got the job is even crazy because he was literally managing in the champ last season. So like that has never happened before. Like to be the manager of Chelsea Football Club. Last year he was managing a club in the championship, guys. That is
Mm.
ridiculous. So the fact he's managed to do what he's done with the level of experience that he has to be a B. But before I finish, the one thing I will say is I cannot stand the recruitment over there. I know they have with Stanley and Stewart there from Brighton.
Mm.
Respectfully, why is Chelsea taking the sporting people from Brighton? Like that makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. They signed Enzo for 130 million. They signed Moises for like 140. Let's not even speak on Mudrik, right?
Mm.
Um, so that's 300 mil, guys. That could easily sign a whole
Yeah.
squad for three players. And a topic that we will speak on crowd in a few weeks is why won't Premier League clubs buy any more superstars? It's so strange
Mm.
to me. Clubs do not buy them anymore. It's so weird to me. So because of the recruitment would be the only reason I would downgrade them for anything, but for the most part for the whole season, yeah, probably a B.
Mm. Yeah, so the verdict is out on the Blues. It's a B. It's a solid B for them. Massive improvement from last season under Poch, and they got more points, won more games as well. Most importantly, and I think there's been a massive improvement. And there's something that Anu mentioned, which Maresca probably needs to learn from and might need to work hard to unlearn as an individual, which is the fact that he's quite rigid when it comes to his tactics. I remember early in the beginning of the season, he found it difficult to get the right double pivot pairing. I think obviously that Lavia and Caicedo is a much better pairing compared to Caicedo and Enzo. I don't know. I see Enzo as someone who is like a deep line playmaker who should be given some sort of role to also crashing into the box. So he tried and chopped different things. And what is weird at the moment, it seems like Caicedo playing at right back and then allowing Lavia and Enzo to, do their thing in midfield. And that then obviously cuts short the minutes of the likes of Rhys James and Malu Gusto. But I think what I've seen from Enzo in this last couple of games is that he's more prompt and swift with the rotation in certain positions. I think he understands that he's got a spine, and now he's looking for um, players that would actually just complement the spine of the team so that the team ticks well. Because we do know that Chelsea is a team that always wants to win major trophies every season, and the ownership, obviously they're under pressure from fans, so they need to deliver as soon as possible. But good season for them. Um, Fifth position, Aston Villa. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of the Villains, obviously being led by Unai Emery. They dealt a huge blow to Arsenal's title hopes last season. But then I think it's been a good season for them. They had a very decent Champions League run as well. They got up to the quarterfinals, if I'm not mistaken, and they got knocked out by PSG. And I think it's been a decent season for Aston Villa. I do think that there was a point in time at the beginning of 2025 where it seemed to be that they just lost form, and then they were losing some games shockingly. And also, it seemed to be that they shifted full focus to the Champions League and were not really turning up in the Premier League. And the inclusions of Marcus Rashford and Asensio refreshed them a bit, obviously. And it was good to see for me until Watkins got dropped consistently. Excuse me. And then you just beg to think of it. Are there issues between um, Unai Emery and Watkins? But I think for me it's going to be a B. I think if I say a B minus, it might be harsh for them, but I think a B is just fair considering the exploits of last season. Qualifying for Champions League football for the first time in um, I think it was
At
54
least
years,
25 years.
at least 25 years, at least 25 years. So yeah, it was a huge. For me, it's a huge improvement for them. So I think a B is fair for them. Olu?
I was very similar, yeah. I was thinking B as well, but I'll say B plus. I think when you think about a team like Aston Villa, if you're not a big six club that's used to the rigors of playing in Europe, Aston Villa are almost like a good blueprint for what non-big six teams should be like whenever they get a chance to play in Europe. This is a team that had 20 wins last year, 68 points. If they beat Man United at Old Trafford next week, they will end the season with 69 points and 20 wins. So you could say it's almost identical, but they've had the caveat of playing in the Champions League, making it to the quarterfinals, and all the rigors of having to play in Europe's premier competition. Also, they're a very, very good example, like you said, Barry, about the additions made in January window. I think this is something that a lot of teams could learn. It's why, like we said earlier, the Arsenal excuses are very jarring. Go and buy the human beings. Footballers are footballers, you
Mm,
know. So I think when you consider all these things and you put it together, they could have a very identical season to last year. Annoyingly, they might still not make the Champions League because if Man City win on Wednesday,
mm,
Aston Villa will go to sixth. But of course, there is the caveat that Chelsea and Nottingham Forest play each other. And they're all Chelsea, Newcastle, and Villa all on 66 points. So it's looking pretty good for Villa at this point, even with the interesting goal difference. But I think objectively, you have to say it's been a pretty good season for them. And I wanted to even shout out Yuri Tillemans. This is a player that I knew should play for the big clubs, but even I had my doubts. He won the FA Cup with Leicester. You can
mm,
always tell he was a pretty good player, but the way he stepped up this year as well and shown that he consistently belongs in this category of the top midfielders, I think it's a great credit to him, and it also shows Unai Emery's coaching. The one drawback, like you said with Oli Watkins, look, as Arsenal fans, we know about the Unai Emery experiment. Towards the end of the season, something's gonna go wrong, and he's gonna do
mm.
something interesting. So for him to have still been able to have something go wrong, but it's just in the Champions League playing against PSG, who are clearly a better side than them, and they even gave PSG that work in that second leg. You know what I mean? For you to literally nuke the Unai Emery Bozo gene is quite impressive. So
Mm,
I think Aston Villa, shout out to you, B plus. One also thing to mention is because of how big they've gone, they really need to make Champions League because of PSR. But
yeah.
that's not the manager's problem, and they're still on track to get it done. So I think Villa fans should be very, very happy with their season. If they get back-to-back Champions Leagues, I mean, what an achievement. And God knows what else they could do moving forward. So B plus for Villa for sure. Strong, strong, strong season.
Yeah, brilliant. Anu?
So for the villains, Their grade will be an A. Um, they have had 60 plus points for the last 3 seasons. Considering that they were so close to like going down, that's incredible. That's like
Hmm.
truly incredible. The manager is amazing. The profile of player that they have managed to bring in like the past like few seasons too has been absolutely exceptional. So shout out to Monchi. So yeah, the grade will be an A, but I am super excited to see what they do next season. I really was hoping that they might win a cup this season. Unfortunately, they failed to do that, of course, but hopefully next season, bro. So yeah, great for Villa is an A.
All right then. So I think with the consensus from the three of us, it's a solid B plus um for the villains this season. And yeah, you might just see them improve next season. It's expected for them to improve, possibly win a trophy. And let's see, they'll challenge for the title definitely. And I think that they're a team that would always bring good competition and they always be entertaining, in the EPL. All right, then. So that's talking about the fifth position in EPL. Sixth position, surprisingly, Manchester City. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Like, I mean, Pep Guardiola is still the coach of Manchester City, and Manchester City is currently sixth in the English Premier League. Exactly what I said. A very, very disappointing season for the citizens. Um, a team that was tipped by a lot of respected people in football to win five consecutive English Premier League titles. It was going to be history in the making because they've already done four, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've done four.
Yep.
So if they
And
won it
6 of the
again,
past 7 before
exactly.
this
So
Liverpool.
it would have been bonkers if they were able to do that. Um, and then I think that would further fuel a theory that some people sincerely and some people would always just put their foot down and say that Pep Guardiola is probably the most historical and successful manager in the history of football. It's a very, very bold claim right now, but I mean, there are a couple of pillars that probably give him that might just qualify him, to have that, should I say, title. But it's been a very underwhelming season for him. I think this has to be his worst finish ever as a manager. In terms of the performance of his team, the points, the match performances, the match performances have sometimes been appalling. You don't expect that from a Pep Guardiola team sometimes. And I think his team probably realized that they've been spoiled. And I think Manchester City proved to everyone else that there are certain players that are just irreplaceable. Rodri is irreplaceable. A properly fit Erling Haaland is irreplaceable. Um, a good and informed Kevin De Bruyne is irreplaceable. You can't really find players to help you. And what is absurd, for me, is the kind of privilege that Pep has had over the years and the privilege that he still continues to have. This man spent £200 million in January only to have this crop of players warming the bench. I read online some sort of absurd story about what happened between him and Kuzanov. So I read that Kuzanov doesn't really understand English,
He
and
doesn't,
then
yeah.
yeah, he kind of Pep felt he made a joke about him being bald, and since then Pep has just had him on the bench. I don't know how true that story is, but I remember reading it on X, and I was just laughing. Honestly, I was just laughing because I feel Kuzanov seems to be, for me, he looks like that kind of player that can actually improve on that Pep. So I was just wondering why he stopped playing him. For crying out loud, Kuzanov, Mateus Reis, and the third player that they signed were all on the
Mamush
bench. Yeah,
and
and
Porto midfielder Rodriguez or Julio
thank
Rodriguez.
you. Yeah, Nico Gonzalez. Nico
Nico
Gonzalez as
Gonzalez,
well.
sorry.
Nico Gonzalez, that was the third player who was brought in to basically
Wasn't he
be
like 60
the
million?
yeah, it was basically brought in to be the Rodri prototype, and then he's not getting any game time as well.
Damn.
He's so slow, by the way, and he needs to add speed to his talent at this point in time if he really wants to play in the Premier League. But I think Pep Guardiola is the only manager that can probably afford to spend £200 million and finish in sixth position. So for me, it's a C. So it's a C minus. So it's a C minus for Manchester City for me. Olu?
I think you haven't been generous. Definitely a D. I mean, if they win their last two games, they will still finish with 20 less points than last season. At the moment, they've scored 24 less goals. As you mentioned, the caveat to spending 200 million in January,
Mm.
like it looks like they've just delayed the refreshing of the squad. And I think
100%.
what's even more damning is, like you said, when you look at the way they play, that fear factor is gone.
Yeah.
For Oliver Glasner to be able to look him in the eyes and say, if you play that same formation, we'll figure you out,
Yeah.
and then go and pack him up in the FA Cup final. I mean, Arsenal, we
Mm.
beat them 5-1 this year. I
Mm-hmm.
know Arsenal, we haven't lost to a Big Six team in 2-3 years, but
Yeah.
the way we've beat the hell out of them, excuse my French, like it just looks like, look, every dog has his day, and it just looks like we're just looking at a bit of a down period for Pep.
Mm.
Yes, he will probably go spend another 200 million in summer, but what's happened to the likes of Phil Foden? No
Mm.
improvement. I
Mm.
think Man City have the most useless set of wing. Oh, you said we should not be harsh, but in the context, they have the most underwhelming set of wingers in football. This man
Mm.
spent 100 million on Jack Grealish, useless.
Mm.
Excuse me.
Mm.
Jeremy Doku is the most frustrating player I find in football.
Mm.
Jinky me jinky, dribble, dribble, dribble. Where's your end product? Where are you crossing? Where are you shooting? He can't do nothing. Then the right wing, Savinho, he scored one goal in the Premier League all season, or two, maybe one against Arsenal, I think.
Mm.
Like when you really think about the players that they've signed, you're looking at absolute dross.
Mm.
Like if Erling Haaland's not playing, they're in big trouble. So I'm quite looking forward to next season because honestly, I think apart from Liverpool, oh wait, I need to caveat that they're about to sign to Johnny Reinders. That could be a big one. He's a fantastic central midfielder.
Mm.
But for this season and what we've seen from Man City, they even got packed up by was it Real Madrid in the round of 16 of the Champions League. I think they have to give them a D. Like for everything that they get and the kind of praise we give them, it's been a shocking season. So D for me for Man City for sure.
Mm. Anu?
So for City, it has to be a C minus. I think the the reliance on one player is very concerning, to say the
Mm.
least. I think Pep should have been a bit more proactive in terms of having somebody who could play that role. Yeah, the Nico kid, to be honest, I've not really seen him play that much, but from what I had seen already, I never really thought he was like a City player. Um,
Mm.
a lot of signings have to be made this summer. Foden, oh my days, bro. Don't even get me started on Foden. But since he promised to not be mean, what I will say is he was certainly in a bad moment for pretty much the whole season, right?
Mm.
I know like the Euros are pretty bad for him. I think the problem with Foden is the media have no idea how to profile Foden.
Mm.
So they think that Foden is a certain type of player when he's not. Like he's not a runner with the ball. He's not exactly somebody who can try to go past the man or anything like that. He's like a lot more of a passer of the ball, and he's a lot more of a shooter from like a certain distance.
Mm.
So he's certainly more of like a system player. I think per se he had managed to go on like a few loan spells. He may have been a lot more adaptable, but because
Mm.
he's played in like the same place for his whole career, played for the same guy, same team, he's very rigid in the way he plays. So for City overall, C minus. I'm very curious to see how they do next season.
Mm. Mm. So definitely for Man City, um, solid C minus from us here, and I hope it just continues to get bad. I already said earlier that I'm an Arsenal fan, so yeah, I sincerely just hope that it only gets worse for Man City. But it will be interesting to see what type of summer transfer window they do have. They are a club that everyone knows that they are financially endowed and they could basically get any type of player they want. I mean, the thought of them getting someone like Tijani Reinders is going to be a huge game changer for them. I think Pep knows that. I think Pep knows he needs to be in the market for another striker as well, someone that can push Haaland. I think another major reason why Haaland performed so well in his debut season was having someone like Julian Alvarez, just behind him, a young striker as well who is a fantastic footballer who can also score goals.
So
So I
Adidas
think
freeing the 80 million on Omama Mush. Isn't that what he was trying to do?
so you know what? I think Pep as well has a way of making potential good players all of a sudden look average. I don't know how he does
Jeremy
it.
Doku, number
You
one. My
know,
God, he
Jeremy
stinks.
Doku, Jack Grealish, the list goes on and on. So now the question is, with this current crop of players, considering the amount that was spent in January, is Pep then going to need to work hard on them to improve them to actually be um, what's the word now, productive members of the team, or is he going to focus on the easy exits and then replace them with new quality players again? I think that's one thing that we'll be looking forward to in this transfer window, and then we'll see what Manchester City are trying to do to rebuild. So yeah, that was Manchester City in sixth position. Now to a team in seventh position, who for me they have been like, I don't know, there's something infectious about the spirit of Nottingham Forest and wanting to see them win, wanting to be happy for them. I think they've been like a folklore till this season in the Premier League with the type of um, wins that they've had, the manner in which they've won games, the surprising wins that they've had against certain teams. I remember the one new win at Anfield, thanks to a fantastic goal by Callum Hudson-Odoi. And I think Nottingham Forest this season under Nuno Espirito Santo, they've just been fantastic. They've got a good number of players that have also shone brightly. Nigeria's Ola Aino has had a great season. Their centre back Milenkovic, the keeper Matt Sells. I think that Morgan Gibbs White has had a fantastic season for me. I think he's someone who might make a big leap to a bigger club next season. It's possible. I think Callum Hudson-Odoi has been brilliant. I think Anthony Elanga has been brilliant. And my oh my, the most typical English striker you could ever think of, Chris Wood, scoring 20 league goals for the first time in his career. Absolutely amazing that he's been able to do that for someone who has played for Newcastle and Burnley in the Premier League. I think that's quite impressive for me, and it's a testament to how the other players around him also improve him. So for me, it's a B. It's a okay. I think it's actually an A for Nottingham Forest. Considering where they were last season, this is a team that was still expected to try to manage the status quo of being in the Premier League, and then they've now gone ahead to challenge for Europe, and they were in the top four for a very long time in the season, and but now they're in seventh position. So for me, it's an A. It's an A for. In fact, it's an A plus for Nottingham Forest for me. Sincerely speaking, it's an A plus. Olu?
We're on the same page. There's not too much to say here. A plus as well. They've doubled their points tally. If you double their points tally from last year, they already have more points than they got last year. So 65 points to 32 last year. They've doubled the number of wins. They could still make the Champions League. They're in the FA Cup semi-final.
Mm.
Scored a bunch of goals. Obviously, you don't want any New Zealanders listening to this and hearing Chris Wood being talked about as English. So
Pardon me.
the New Zealanders will be upset. But I
Yeah.
mean, what season is put together? And
Yeah.
as you said, Ola I know in particular. So I track Nottingham Forest every week because of the podcast.
Mhm.
And yeah, just fantastic to see. There's not too much to add. Brilliant season, A plus, considering where they were last year. And let's
Mhm.
see where they end up at the end of the season.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Anu, do we have you now? Okay.
Um, everything comes to my camera. So
Okay.
sorry, guys.
Okay.
Or to be honest, I was gonna say a lot, but I'm having to try to figure this out right now. So I will just keep it quick, and I'll say Forest to get an A plus.
Okay. Sweet. So Brentford next. Um, eighth position. Um, first season without Ivan Tony, and then you've got Wisa and then Mbuemo turning up. Basically saving the team game in, game out. Brentford is one team that would always score goals in a game and find a way to still be, in the game. And I think for me, it's been an average season for me. If you ask me, I think a B is just all right, considering the fact that they've been able to still be competitive, while losing one of their best players. I mean, for 2 seasons consecutively, they've lost two of their best players. First of all, it was David Raya, and then it was then Ivan Tony. Two players for me who were part of the spine of the team. So for me, I think they were just there. You would have expected them to probably try to challenge more, but considering the quality of the squad, considering the absence of big players, I think it was an okay season for me. I think a B is fair. Yeah, Brentford. Over to you, Lou.
I mean, I have the benefit of statistics in front of me. I think that's slightly harsh. We have to give Brentford A. One thing people forget is last season they finished 16th, and they
Mm,
only got 30. Was it 36 points? So this is a team that literally was finished just above Nottingham Forest. They
mm,
ended the season with 39 points, and this season, as at today, they've been able to improve their points tally by 19 points. So, I mean, by all caveats, and then you lose your star striker, and then you have Mbuemo and Yohan Wissa, who both have 19 Premier League goals each. Do you know how insane it is that Brentford may have two strikers end up with 20 Premier League goals for the season?
amazing.
Plus 11 goal difference. They're eighth in the league right now. They may still, I think, eighth has a chance to make Europe. So when
Mm,
you consider that they were 16th, I mean, that's a bit harsh. This is a for sure for Brentford, and fantastic work for Thomas Frank. And they're hosting the Super Eagles next week. The Nigeria Ghana game is going to be at Brentford Stadium. So
in
looking forward
3 weeks.
to seeing
Yeah.
the stadium. So
Yeah, on the
we'll see
29th.
how they go. But Brentford, 100% A. I think they're one of those teams that's like, you just, I see the sentiment as well. But when you really look through the numbers and what they've been able to do, we've also seen improvements from players like Damsgaard,
Mm,
quite important, to their season. I think it's been an A season. Kevin Shard has 10 Premier League goals. Do you know how insane that
mm,
is? This guy didn't even
impressive.
start like half the games in the Prem. Although I don't know what he was doing trying to play for Germany over Nigeria, but hey, story of our lives. So I think Brentford get an A from me for sure.
Fantastic, fantastic. So an A from Olu for Brentford. Anu?
Yeah. So, sorry guys. It seems as though the camera has just chosen to stop working. So,
Mm,
for the Bees though, I am gonna give them an A plus. I think that Thomas Frank is an amazing coach. Truly, truly amazing gaffer. Has managed to make that team work with so many pieces like have like changed in like the past few years.
mm.
Sorry guys, still here. I have no idea what's going on my browser right now. It's just being stupid. But yes, the grade that I would give them though is an A plus.
Oh, sweet, great. So that's the verdict on that for Brentford. Um, Definitely, Anu and Ulu build them up from my very judgy verdict. So an A plus for Brentford. And then I think they've been honestly they've been a brilliant team since they got promoted to the Premier League, and um, they just seem to keep improving season in season out. I think a major achievement for them has to be maybe qualifying for Europe, and then considering the possibility of them winning a trophy. I think it would be nice to see Brentford win a trophy. They've got a very good manager. They play good football as well. So, yeah, it's the sky's the limit for them, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, Olu, eighth position at the moment.
Well, Brighton?
So ninth now.
Yeah. Um, I'd say Brighton get a B. Remember they had an excellent season 2 seasons ago where they made
Mm,
Europe. Last year
mm,
was a bit of a downer season, but they still made 48 points. So for them to have, their 55 points, they're ninth. They started the season well, but they also have draw syndrome like Arsenal. I think them and Fulham are the ones that are rivaling us. No,
mm,
actually, Brighton and Crystal Palace and Everton are the teams alongside us that have drawn the most games in the Premier League with 13 games. But considering Fabian Hurstler as his first season in the Premier League, I think he's 31 years old.
yeah.
They've signed a lot of players, so he had to integrate a lot of players into their squad. I think for Brighton's level and expectations, it's been a B season. Next
Mm.
year would be more appropriate to judge what they could do and see how they level up. But I think they can't be too mad at the season they've had. A lot of draws, but still pretty steady Eddie mid-table in the Prem. And I think most of their fans would consider themselves pretty satisfied with the season they've had. A few players have. I don't think there's been a standout player from Brighton that you could say has improved year on year. João Pedro scores too many penalties for us to put him in there. But
A goal
and
is a
also,
goal at the end of the day.
and also I was at the Arsenal game where he wound me up from getting that where Declan Rice got sent off for kicking the
Yeah.
ball out. And then in the second leg where we went to the Amex, remember they gave him that dodgy penalty with
Mm.
Saliba. They said Saliba
Yeah.
hit his head. So this is a bit like personal sentiment, but overall, I think Brighton can be happy with the season they've had, considering the improvement from last year. So I'll say a B. But because they're the biggest spenders in Europe for the summer, I'll say B minus is probably more appropriate. When you spend 200 million in the summer, we should be seeing the evidence. So B
True.
minus.
True. True. All right then, Anu.
Sure. So for the Seagulls, I am going to give them a B plus, and it's because the new manager for the most part, it's so hard, and also I know that in terms of the recruitment that they had in the past summer, they actually had a lot of players that came in, right?
Mm.
So the fact that the new guy he managed to make like the new players they managed to like gel in the squad, and a lot of the new people had like a huge impact too on the season that they've had so far. So the fact that they managed to be in like the top 10 for at least the past 3 seasons, and they managed to also do that with the new manager, yeah, the grade is a B plus.
Mm. I think it's fair to give them a B as well. I think the consensus on Brighton would be a B, considering the fact that they've got a new manager, they've got players who had not played in the Premier League before. I think what I just like about Brighton is that, irrespective of whoever the coach is, irrespective of the players who come in, there's a blueprint for the team. There's a vision for the way the club is run, and I really really like it. If I wanted to go into scouting, I would sincerely want to be an intern with the Brighton scouting department, because
Absolutely.
their networking and the way they just bring out players from any and everywhere is absolutely amazing. I mean, players like Jorginho Rota, Carlos Baleba, these are some really, 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 really good players. Yakuba Minte as well. Those are some top players. Just to touch on something Olu said, it doesn't seem like they've got a lot of players that are massively improved. I think Mitoma got to a certain level and has regressed. I don't think Adingra progressed past what we saw from him as a breakout superstar, and someone who gave Ola I know a tough time as well at the AFCON final. So
And
I think
enjoy Dollar, I know we must add.
yeah, yes, true. I enjoyed Ola I know. So yeah, I think a B is fair for Brighton. In 10th position is the Cherries, Bournemouth. It's quite funny. Last season, they finished in 12th position with 54 points. Currently, they're in 10th position with just 55 points. So just currently 1 point better off from where they were before. But I think I have seen an improvement in the style of the team, the way they play football. They are more competitive now. They lose less games, and they play good football, which is the most important thing for me. I think they've got some players who have honestly made them tick very well. Um, they've got the likes of Tavernier, Evan Nielsen. They had Dean Huijsen this season, obviously, who's going to Real Madrid now. The Dutch Sp- Spaniard centre back, someone who can just absolutely play in any position for me. He's so talented and such a quality player, such a quality player. So sad to see that he's not going to be at Bournemouth for a long time. I mean, I think it was quite clear that he was never going to be there for a long time. But I was hoping that he would still remain in the Premier League. But he's going to join the Galacticos, talking about Real Madrid. And honestly, Bournemouth have got other players just like a similar setup to Newcastle, players that just help to make the squad remain competitive, irrespective of who plays week in, week out. So for me, I think for Bournemouth, it would just be a B, not a B plus, just a B would be good for Bournemouth, considering um, the improvement in position and the improvement of the football that the team plays and then being a bit more competitive for me. So it's a B when it comes to Bournemouth for this season for me. Olu?
Same page, mate. I think when you look at their record last year to this season, maybe at the moment they have 5 more points, but a
Mm,
lot of their metrics are very identical. They're currently 10th. They finished 12th last year. They won 12 games last year. They won 14. So slight improvements here or there. Yes, you could argue that when Evan Nelson was out injured, that played a part as well. And
mm,
you could say their style of plays was a bit more exciting for sure. But all in all, there was a time where we thought they could push for Europe, but you could say they've regressed slightly over the last 10 games. But all in all, a team like Bournemouth still being 10th, is still something not to be sniffed at. So,
mm,
plus 12 goal difference, is still a pretty good feat for a club of the size of Bournemouth, as you said. And this is a team that we can actually see the improvement in certain players, especially Antoine Semenyo and what's my man's name? Justin Clivert, you
yeah.
know. So, Don Heisen go in there for 1 year only. I'm not mad at it because it probably means Madrid will stop looking towards our own centre backs. They'll keep their eye from Saliba.
Yeah.
So let them go and carry their Spanish guy. Let him go play there for 10 years. I don't mind.
Mm,
Just let them face their front. But all in all, decent season for them. B for me as well, for considering where they were at the start of the season.
yeah. Anu?
So for Bournemouth, I am going to give them an A plus, guys. A plus. What the hell? Top 10 Premier League. Bournemouth. What?
Mm,
And they've like taken so many huge scalps too in the past few years. I think the manager there is highly underrated. I will be shocked if he's still there in the start of next season. Simply
mm,
impossible. I think he'll probably be the Spurs manager by then. I think the squad there too will be fleeced dry by pretty much the whole world. I think half the players will probably be gone by like July.
mm,
Um, and unfortunately, that is just what happens, right? So they have had a they have had an extremely impressive season, but unfortunately, when a lot of these small teams have those seasons, they do tend to get graded for pretty much all the good players that they do have, and the manager will probably be gone as well. But still, in spite of all that, for this season, 100% A plus.
mm. All right. Then, so definitely for Bournemouth, it's a B from us on the TME podcast. Um, in 12th position now is Fulham, if I'm
Crystal
not mistaken.
Palace. Oh no, Fulham.
Sorry,
Sorry, Fulham. They just scored a goal, so they've now gone up to
they've
10th.
got exactly because I was
They're winning
wondering.
3-2.
So Fulham just took the place of Bournemouth in 10th position,
Yeah.
but in 11th position before was Fulham. So Fulham currently have 54 points because they are currently playing Brentford actually, and they are away to Brentford, so they just scored a goal and they've moved up the table. 54 points currently with Fulham, 10th position in the top half of the Premier League table. I think it's been a topsy-turvy season under Marco Silva. I think they've just lacked consistency for me. But we've seen how important players like Alex Iwobi are to the team. Calvin Bassey as well has been solid for Fulham at the back this season. And Anthony Robinson has to be a very, very underrated left back. He's a very, very hardworking fullback, and he adds a lot of quality into the team. Emil Smith Rowe has shown flashes of brilliance. He's shown why he was able to play at Arsenal, for a good number of years, and he's been having a good season for them as well. I think the signings they've made this season have honestly been good for them. Talking about someone like Joachim Anderson, who came in from Crystal Palace, he's been a fantastic addition into the team. Willian coming back has been a good addition into the team. Um, Rodrigo and Raul Jimenez are they both hit form at different periods, which has been very good. Andres Pereira has been a good squad player, and same thing with Adama Traore. They've got a good number of players that honestly improved this season. But collectively as a team, I think what they have lacked is total 100% focus for 90 minutes. And that usually affects them. but I do think that has been an improvement under Marco Silva, so I will give Fulham a B. Yeah, so I think Fulham deserves a B. Olu?
Similar to you, bro. I'll say B or B plus. Similar. Like when we look at the improvements year on year, they have 7 more points than they did last year. They may end up having 10 more points. Their goals are identical year on year. There's a time they thought they could push for Europe, but they've ended up quite mid-table. But I put the plus there for the caveats you mentioned as well. They're one club where we could clearly see the improvement of certain players, whether that's Anthony Robinson, who I think should move to a top six club, or even the likes of Iwobi, as you said, and Bassi. You could see their progression as individuals. I mean, for Marco Silva to allow Raul Jimenez resurrect from the dead alone, we have to give him a B plus for that because I thought Raul Jimenez was finished. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I think Fulham as a whole, they should be proud of the season they put together. Yes, they
Mm.
just ran out of steam because of the I guess you could say size of their squad. But all in all, they could be proud of what they've achieved this year, and they'll go again next year. So I think B plus for Fulham for me for sure.
Lovely. Anu?
Yeah, same for me. B plus, B plus. The manager is amazing. Marco Silva is the most underrated manager in the Premier League.
Mm.
Fulham haven't been in like the relegation scraps at all in the past 3 years, guys. Not in any shape or form. And I still
Mm.
remember the first time that they came up in like that first season, where like their squad, with a lot of respect, was fairly meaty, right?
Mm.
But we still managed to like get to like the mid-table stage of things, and it's pretty much the same thing for this season as well. Because I know when they lost João Palhinha, a lot of people thought they'd probably go down this season,
Mm.
and they haven't. So yeah, B plus.
B plus, fantastic from the TME podcast. It's a B rating for Fulham and Marco Silva. And going straight to 12th position, we've got Crystal Palace, the Eagles, who are the 2024-25 FA Cup winners. Yo, big ups to South London. Yeah, big ups to Crystal Palace. It's been an important win for them. Very important win for players like Eberechi Eze, Magehi, Will Hughes, Wardy, talking about Joe Ward. Look, they've got some solid players in this team who have been loyal to the core. They've been loyal to the improvement of the team as well. If you don't know, Oliver Glasner manages Crystal Palace, and since he took over, the team has honestly just grown in leaps and bounds. Um, First of all, him identifying the fact that these players can actually um, execute my style of football. I think it was a good thing for him, first of all, because one of the major reasons why he was successful at Eintracht Frankfurt was the fact that he could play his own style of football, and he loves a three at the back system. Usually a 3-4-2-1. He loves having double tens behind the striker, the same way that Javi Alonso loves to play football. So Crystal Palace having those crop of players, and then also obliging him by buying more players that help to improve that style of football. I think it has helped him a lot. Diego Munoz has been a fantastic addition into the team. The renaissance of Jean-Philippe Mateta, Ismail Assar coming into the team after being out of the Premier League for a while has also improved the team. So I think despite the injuries and the huge loss of Michael Olise to Bayern Munich and Joachim Andersen to Fulham, they have played good football, and it's been a fantastic season for them. But then let's not forget that they're in 12th position in the Premier League at the moment. I think that last season they finished in a better position of 10th position with 57 points. And then this season they are 12th position with 46 points. And I do remember during the course of the season, there were just times where they were inconsistent and they had shocking losses. Yes, I would say shocking losses because the level of competition expected from Crystal Palace is quite high at the moment due to the quality of players that they've had in recent seasons. So for me, I think for the Premier League in particular, um, I think it would be fair to just give them a C, and not necessarily not a C minus, but a C, considering the fact that they've been able to still manage the squad and be competitive in a knockout competition and to go ahead to win it. So I think it's a solid C for me, or maybe a C plus. I'll give it a C plus for Crystal Palace. C plus for Crystal Palace. Olu?
I think this will be one massive disparagement. I think they deserve an A minus. I'm not sure
Mm,
what you're looking at, but they actually got 49 points last year, so they've already matched their points tally this year. They have 49 points this year with 2 games to go, so they're
mm,
gonna probably exceed their tally after losing Michael Olise. And as you
mm,
said with Oliver Glasner, what we've seen, we saw Mateta score 15 goals last season in the Prem. He may
mm,
get close to that number again this year. And when you lose real star players of that quality, and they haven't refreshed too many players. They also lost Joachim Anderson. Yes, they
mm,
signed Maxon Lacroix, who's very good centre back. But in the league, they've pretty much been the same team we've seen from last year,
yeah,
despite losing Michael Olise, who we clearly know is, you could almost say, a world-beating player.
mm,
But you can't excuse the fact that they just won the first trophy of their entire history yesterday. Played Man City off the park, played Aston Villa off the park in the semi-finals 3-0.
mm,
I think for a club like Crystal Palace, a lot of their fans, yesterday was the greatest day of their life. So even if it's a Premier League ranking, I think when you add in the context of how they've had to juggle their FA Cup runs with the Premier League, it only make for me, I definitely would give them an A minus for the season they've had. It's been exceptional. And I live in South London, so if there's a team I wish well, apart from Arsenal, go on Palace. Well done. So A
yeah.
minus for me for sure.
Yeah, so just to clarify the disparity, sorry, I think I was looking at the goals for that they scored
Okay.
last season. So yeah, I mean you are correct. The last season they had 49 points, and then this season as well, even with two positions below, they still have 49 points at this point in time in the season. So considering everything, yeah, okay, an A minus is fair. Anu?
So for Palace, I am going to give them a B plus. I think that, well, first things first. According to XG, which is the likelihood of a shot resulting in a goal, right? They
Mm-hmm.
should have scored 18 more goals this season. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
18 more goals, and they still managed to stay up, and they won a trophy. So shout out to the manager. He's amazing. He won the first trophy for Frankfurt. Now has managed to do the same for Palace. So yeah, B plus.
No, B plus. Hmm. I said a C. Olu came with an A minus. And we came with a B. What's the consensus? Is it going to be a
I
B?
think B plus is the average. He said B plus, didn't he? So B
Yeah,
plus.
yeah. So definitely B plus would be the average for Crystal Palace. All in all, I think it was a successful season for them, despite talking about the fact that they won a trophy and they were still able to be competitive in the Premier League and not get involved in a relegation battle. That's good for them. So
And I
yeah,
think we must give them credit for how big of a loss Michael Olise is. Like,
true,
I mean, come on.
true, 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 true.
Bundesliga Rookie of the Year by far.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is an elite level talent.
True. So big ups to Crystal Palace once again. Congratulations to the 2024-25 FA Cup winners who defeated Manchester City at Wembley Stadium. So congratulations to them once again. Currently in the 13th position in the EPL is Everton. The team, the blue side of Merseyside. Um, this season in 13th position, they've amassed 45 points so far. And then in comparison to last season, they were in 15th place and they finished with 40 points. So I think it's quite clear that over the last two seasons, Everton have been struggling. But now the most iconic manager in the history of Everton Football Club is back at the helm. Talking about David Moyes, he had to come in and basically save them. And before he came in, they were fighting a relegation battle, and it seemed to be that one of the most historic clubs could be getting relegated in the same season where they're going to be leaving their historic stadium. It was going to be some story if that eventually happened. But David Moyes came in and he's been able to stabilize the season for Liverpool, for Everton, pardon me, for Everton. And then I think because of David Moyes coming in and helping to improve the level of the team in terms of how competitive they are, in comparison to the last two seasons, I think it's a B for me for Everton. I think they deserve a B. I think that next season with David Moyes at the helm and with the new owners, I'm expecting good financial backing. If they're able to get good quality players that would be able to execute the style of football that David Moyes likes, I think Everton will be in a much better place next season. So for me, it's a B for Everton this season. Olu?
I totally agree. I think B for Everton is very, very fair. Similar. They've improved position wise, but they had 40 points last year, 45 this year. Yes, they've not won as many games last as they did last year, but they've drawn far more games than they've lost. I think their goal difference is also far healthier. I remember there was a point where I think they were even bottom last in the Prem. So to
Mm.
consider what they've been able to do over the past 5 months, I think we have to give them credit to even get to the position where they're easily, clearly above the likes of United and Tottenham, which we'll speak about soon. But I think as a team, as a club, they can be very proud of their achievements this year. And I think a B is very fair considering where they were at the start of the season.
Mm. Anu?
Yeah, so same as you guys, B. I think Morris has managed to like save their season because if not, they would most definitely have gone down. Super excited to see what they do next season. I think recruitment is super huge for them in terms of the players that they bring in. Of course, I think that squad is thin, very thin. So they need like 5 to 6 new players at least. But overall for the season, B.
All right, from us here on the TME podcast is a solid B for Everton. In 14th position currently in the English Premier League is Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I think this is a team for me that now that we're speaking about them, I think I've come to the realization that Wolverhampton Wanderers are in 14th position because every other team above them simply just has more quality players in comparison to them. The English Premier League, without a doubt, has to be the most competitive league in the world. And um, if you want to play with the big boys, you need to be able to do the things that big boys do. And Wolverhampton Wanderers cannot afford to do that at the moment. But with the players that they have, I think they've been good enough this season. Obviously, their standard player has been Mateus Cunha, and who has been massively, massively helping them. In 14th position, they've got 41 points. And the irony is that last season, in this same position, this is where they finished with 14 points. They had 46 points, which they finished with last season. And then this season, they've got 41 so far with 2 games to go. So there might be a possibility that, they finish with the same tally or more. And aside Mateus Cunha, Strand Larsen has been a good player for them. Ike Nuri has been a revelation, his assists have massively helped the team. Pablo Sarabia has put in good performances when he's been needed. Gonzalo Guedes as well. Um, they've got a good, decent team. Bellegarde as well. They've got a team of hard workers for me who help to always get the best result out of games. Um, I think there's been an improvement in their style of play. So due to that improvement, I think it's fair to give Wolverhampton Wanderers a B. I wouldn't go as far as giving a B plus, but I think it's fair to give them a B. Olu?
Yeah, similar. I mean, we also remember they lost Pedro Neto and Mario
Mm,
Lemina. Lemina in January, but Pedro Neto last summer, who was one of the key outlets. Thank God. I mean, Matias Cunha is my favorite player in the Premier League outside of the top six, to be honest.
mm,
I think he's an absolutely incredible player. But like you said, they're going to end up with a very identical record, but there's a time where they thought they could get relegated. So, with that in mind, and considering they were in the relegation zone steadily for like a long while in the first 10 or 15 games of the season, I think a B is also very fair. And you could see the building blocks they could use to then improve their team. Signing the centre back, Agbado's definitely helped. Also,
yeah.
the forward, Munetsi, he's been a revelation in the new system by what's that, their manager, the fantastic guy who goes to the pub to drink with the players, with the
Uh,
fans.
I've forgotten his name.
Victor Pereira, I think.
Yeah,
So
Victor
Vitor
yeah,
Perez.
Pereira.
so I think all in all, like B is very solid for Wolves, and obviously they're gonna lose Cunha. I think that's fair. So we'll see what they do in the summer, but they can be proud of their season considering where it started, and I think a B is a very fair result. We've also seen the Fosun team in China generally not invest in Wolves as much as they did in previous seasons.
Mm,
They may lose Ryan Nuri as well, so let's see what happens there. But they can be proud of the season they put together considering where they were.
brilliant. Anu?
Yeah, so for Wolves, it would be a B plus as well. I think that by November, I think pretty much the whole league thought they would probably get relegated. But the way that the new coach has managed to come in and actually like turn around the whole team really um has been incredible, really. And considering they sold their captain and they sold their best player as well, and it's like so many changes happened in like the past summer, and the fact that they have managed to stay up is so amazing. The one thing I will say before I finish is Sarabia. I need him to start. He's amazing. He's amazing, and for some reason, he's always like playing off the bench, and I'm not like sure why that is, but I think he might need a move soon.
Mm, mm. I mean, for Sarabia, this is someone who was once playing for Paris Saint-Germain. He was once
Hmm.
playing top flight league football for the best team in France. So he is a quality player, and I'm sure he's someone who can add quality to any top six team in the Premier League. I mean, he's played for PSG, he's played for Sevilla, he's played for Sporting Lisbon, if I'm not mistaken. So
Also,
definitely
we're
that.
forgetting the man is 33 years old. Like, come on. He has 27 caps for Spain. Like, Sarabia
Bro,
is not going to change your destiny right now.
bro,
Like,
True,
bro.
but
he's
Still a
at his
baller
time.
though.
good player.
Still a baller though. Still a baller, my guys.
Yeah, fair. Solid squad player. So that's it on Wolverhampton Wanderers. A solid B from us on the TME podcast. Um, Currently in the EPL in 15th position is the Hammers. Talking about West Ham. So far this season, they've got 40 points with one more game to go. It's an obvious regression from the ninth place finish of last season with 52 points. For me, I think the biggest issue was getting rid of David Moyes. I still do not understand the logic behind sacking David Moyes. Um, and then you went ahead to get Lopetegui, who hasn't really been a successful manager, if we're being honest. He had his stint with Sevilla, had his stint with Real Madrid. He hasn't really been a successful manager, but he's just someone for me who's got pedigree due to his playing career. I think that pedigree is still works some magic for him. And then Graham Potter came in, and I believe for me, Graham Potter's objective had definitely had to be first to secure Premier League status for them, and possibly from next season they can then progress. So considering Graham Potter coming in to try and steady the ship. They've amassed 40. They've got 40 points already, which means that mathematically they are saved, and I think that's an achievement. But for Graham Potter, but generally, when you compare to last season, there's been a regression. They've lost more games this season, especially at home. Um, One of their star players, Mohamed Kudus, has been underwhelming this season as well. You've had shocking performances from Mavropanos, who has been scapegoated by the fans a lot. I don't think they want him to remain in the team. Um, excuse me, you've got someone like Paqueta who's been in and out of the team due to injury as well. And I think it's been difficult to find the right balance for this West Ham team. Talking about the players they have, and they made some signings that did not just hit it off for me. Nicholas Fulkrug, for example, honestly did not just hit the ground running. Somerville was hot and cold throughout the season as well. Um, Obviously, losing Mikel Antonio was a huge blow for them. That was a huge blow for them. But I think Jared Bowen has stepped up massively for them, especially this season, and he's a major reason why they've been able to secure Premier League status. But at the end of the day, I think it's a C for West Ham. Olu?
Yeah, similar. Bless you. C
Thank
minus.
you.
I think West Ham, you said it all anyway. We all knew, all us non-West Ham fans were like, what the hell are these people thinking? Trying to get rid of David Moyes. He introduced them to a vibe. All of a sudden, they thought they were better than the vibe. This is a team that played in Europe 3 consecutive seasons under David Moyes and even won a conference league. And it's like they literally forgot where they came from or where they started. And we were all wondering what the hell they were thinking, but they'll make it seem like you're gaslighting them. Oh, we're West Ham. What do you mean? We want to watch better football. Blah, blah, blah. They're so annoying. Honestly, I love seeing them suffer because they talk so much rubbish. So honestly, C minus is even being nice. Honestly, I thought it could be a D Because to go from ninth and 52 points, good luck to them getting that 80 million they want from Mohamed Kudus. You know, like it's they're just West Ham will forever be a great example of be careful what you wish for as a football club. They just always shoot themselves in the foot. Yes, they have a strong fan base, 60,000 people fill up the London Stadium, blah 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 blah. But ultimately, it's like when things are going good for you, keep it that way. Stop getting too big for your boots. And they keep forgetting that that Conference League trophy was the first trophy in what 50, 60 years in their history.
Yeah.
So I think West Ham is now that they've been humbled again, they're literally lucky that the two teams after them are even worse. But Graham Potter, we've barely seen an uplift from him. We'll give him the caveat that let's see what he can do in the summer and a full preseason. But honestly, I think C minus or D. Just because they've been able to get to 40 points, I'd say we'll give them a C minus. But honestly, just a shocking bland team. And I'm still so annoyed at Arsenal losing to these guys at home. It's a graceful result, honestly.
I, I think that just has to be the highlight of West Ham season. Defeating Arsenal. That has to be it for sure. I'm sure their fans got a good kick out of it. Anu, over
Bro,
to you.
Moyes had them in Europe for 3 years straight. Do you know how
Yeah,
insane that
yeah.
is? They played the Europa League semi-final and they turned their backs on the guy. Nah, man. Let me keep quiet before I say anything rude.
Anu?
So for West Ham, I will also give them a C minus. I think West Ham are like Spurs in the sense that they think they're a big club yet they're not. And also they're like Spurs in the sense that they think they have a right to see their team play like extremely entertaining football for some reason. So when you really think about it, West Ham are pretty much like the younger brother of Spurs, really. Um, with that being said, Lopetegui, yeah, that was never a great bet because he's more of like a pragmatic manager, and that's not what they wanted, clearly, right? And I think the main problem with Potter is that his team, they never score goals. They never score goals. Like, it's so weird. Like, same thing happened at Brighton, same thing happened at Chelsea, same thing's happening now at West Ham. I'm pretty sure his team, they always find a way to not perform to the level of their XG. So until he finds a way to fix that problem, I think next season will probably be a lot more of the same for them. They'll probably be higher position wise, but it won't be like a top 10 finish. No.
Same.
Yeah, so definitely a minus. See, that's the verdict from us here, considering West Ham's performance. It was a regression, and hopefully next season, more time for Graham Potter, and hopefully he
Just
can.
before we do these last five, are there um grades below D that we could use?
Yeah, yeah. So for Spurs and United, we are free to use half.
Okay. Okay, good.
Fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, let's get back into it. So currently in 16th position. Sincerely speaking, never in a million years did I think I would ever utter these words. In 16th position, currently in the 2024-25 Premier League season, Manchester United, the most illustrious club in history of Premier League football. Um, you know, 19 Premier League titles, right? 19 Premier League titles.
20 league titles, I think 13 are Premier League titles, but yeah, you're right. Like, shocking.
And I think what then might just make this analysis more funny is the fact that last season they finished in eighth position, and that's not even.
It's not good enough for them.
It's not still good enough. It's not a position that is
60
accustomed
points,
to.
by the way. They clowned Arsenal for finishing eighth with 69 points,
Yo,
6 points.
yo, and then they finished eighth position with 60 points. They had a manager called Eric Ten Hag, who honestly, for me, with all due respect to him and as an individual and what he has achieved so far in his career, but I think if I see him in person, I can also say this to him. I think Eric Ten Hag has to be one of the most deluded humans in the world, and maybe it works for him. That's good. But I think that man is a major reason why Manchester United are where they are today. And then Ruben Amorim came in, taking over the team, excuse me, and he had to change the philosophy because he's accustomed to a philosophy that works for him, that has helped him to be successful elsewhere. When he was the coach of Braga, when he took over at Braga, initially they were playing with a 4-2-3-1. Things were not going well. They were in a relegation battle. He switched to a three at the back, which he prefers, and then the team was able to survive relegation. The next season at Braga, he wins the Portuguese Cup. That then ends in his move to Sporting Lisbon, and then he had been successful with Sporting Lisbon, helping to keep FC Porto quiet for a good number of seasons, and he has basically laid a good foundation there at Sporting Lisbon, and then coming to Manchester United, obviously he felt that these are top players who should be able to adapt to any system of football, which is expected from any sort of footballer. But it's been difficult at United because um, there is no massive improvement. Yes, you can try. I think it's quite clear to understand the pattern in which Amorim wants them to play, but I just think that he doesn't have the right players to execute this system of football that he wants. But for some reason, he's still pressing on for them to use this system of football, and they've been coming up with wishy-washy results. Somehow, some way, Manchester United is also in this final of the Europa League. They will be set to face Tottenham Hotspur, who, by the way, have already beaten them 3 times this season. Um, Definitely for me, it's been a very, very poor season for Manchester United. They've not won any games consecutively. Um, it's been a failure for me this season for Manchester United. I think an F is appropriate for me when regarding Manchester United. A solid F for me, considering Manchester United. Olu?
Yeah, not much to add. Same F. I mean, to be honest, they're a disgrace to the big club alliance. I think
Mm.
even the most diehard Man United fan has to say, 10 wins. They played 37 games. They have one more, and they're likely to lose that game to Aston Villa. By all metrics, it's been a Hall of Shame performance. For you to finish eighth with 60 points, and then you have 21 less points the next season. I can't even remember the last time Man United had a positive goal difference in a Premier League season. I mean, 2 years ago they did. But I think it's just been a shocking, shocking performance all around. And honestly, if whichever one of them wins the Champions League, I mean the Europa League, good for them. But it's been hell. And even
Yeah.
one of these teams, whoever loses, they're gonna be buried. I'm telling you,
Mm.
because something really, really nasty is cooking up in these two teams.
Mm.
To lose 18 Premier League games, 18. That means they've lost almost half their games this season. Like
Mm.
literally going to Old Trafford is literally no longer a fearful thing. It's why
Mm.
Arsenal pissed me off so much. Everybody got 3 points at Old Trafford except Arsenal. West
Mm.
Ham, it's just like why? But anyway, to remain focused, I think F is very appropriate, and I don't think we'll ever see this kind of shamelessness from big clubs again. But long may the suffering continue. But if I had to choose
Amen
one of
again.
them to win the Europa League, begrudgingly, I'll still say United. They'll give you a few jabs. They'll run. They'll try to deceive themselves that they've had a better season than you, but we all know that as Arsenal fans, we'd rather be in our own position. So just shocking, shocking stuff, man. If you played
Mm.
Football Manager 100 times, you will not see this team end up 16th. So that's
Never.
how bad it's been. So yeah, terrible, terrible. F. Or if there's something worse, ungradable, ungradable. You.
Yeah, lovely. Anu?
Yeah, so for United, I mean, it might be like an F plus or something, right? I mean, geez. I mean, truly, truly terrible. I mean, and I think where like they really screwed up, and like first things first, the thing I will say is I think Man United are completely cursed as a club now. Cursed. Like I think since Fergie left, um, they will never reach those levels ever again. And that's just me being honest, by the way. Um, but regarding the manager change, that was a bad decision because he is clearly not the right fit, right?
Mm.
And they are choosing to persist for some reason, but he's so clearly not the right fit. You can't play a back three in the Premier League and be a top four team anymore. No.
Mm.
Also, I think the profile of players that he needs is just so much. Like he needs so many players, guys. And
Mm,
if he happens to get sacked in like 6 months, right? All those transfers would be a complete waste.
mm,
So, regarding the Europa League final, it's like a rock and a hard place, isn't it? Because I really don't like the two teams.
mm.
Um, no, 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 like straight up, dude, straight up.
Mm,
But Spurs fans are like so much more annoying, aren't they? So
mm,
the team that I would need to win would probably be Man United. But regarding the grade, yeah, solid F plus.
mm, mm. Fair enough then. Um, I think it's fair to say that it's a solid F from us here regarding Manchester United and they're finished this season in the Premier League. Most likely they will remain in 16th position with one game to go. Terrible season for Man United. Um, as a rival fan, I would love this to continue. Hopefully to see them get relegated next season. But if they're able to turn this around one way or the other, it would be absolutely amazing. I do think that Ruben Amorim deserves a summer whereby there are mass exits and there are a lot of players coming in as well. To be more precise, players that can help to execute his system of football flawlessly for him. I do think he deserves
Yes,
that.
but like the problem is he won't manage to get the time, right? Because say like it's like November, for
Mm,
instance, and they've lost like four of like their last like 9 games, right?
yeah.
'Cause he like will probably lose his job then. So it's like the owners have like placed themselves in a very very hard spot in the sense that they really think he's like the guy because he's like handsome and he speaks really well
Mm,
for some reason, but
mm,
he's a coach, man. He needs to coach
mm,
the team on the grass. So it's so
yeah.
confusing to me, man.
Mm,
In my view, he will be there by Christmas. No chance in hell. But
mm,
what I am super what I am super interested in is to see who they bring in. But I think regarding the manager, I don't think he lasts longer than let's say like 1 year. No.
mm, mm. Fair enough. Fair enough. So I mean, time will tell eventually with Man United and Ruben Amorim. In 17th position, a team which I'm very much happy to see there is a team from who claims to be from North London anyway. Talking about Spurs, that's Tottenham Hotspur. Um, it's quite funny because last season they finished in fifth position um, with 66 points, and currently they are in 17th position with 38 points under a manager who said usually in his second season he wins something. Obviously, he's not winning the English Premier League, but he managed to get into the final of the Europa League, and he's got a better hand, against Manchester United. Like I said earlier, they've already defeated Manchester United 3 times this season. But Spurs are a team that are synonymous to failure, and and when you need them the most, they will disappoint you. So you would only think that they will go ahead to lose that final when they really, really do not need to lose that final. And a lot of people are hoping that they do win that final. But hey, time will tell. I think it's been a very, very poor season for Spurs under Ange in the Premier League. I think the manner in which they've lost games and the way they lose leads as well. I think that's one major thing about Spurs. Spurs take the leads a lot in a lot of games and end up losing those games. So Spurs scoring first in a game is not a guarantee that they will probably have enough momentum to go ahead and win a game. It's been terrible. It's been a failure of the season for Tottenham Hotspur. Olu?
Yeah, same. I mean, same. Like in my podcast, a lot of times I call them Dom and Dumba,
Mm,
United and Tottenham. So F, straight F. 21 Premier League losses. After
mm,
37 games, like just shocking stuff. I mean, this is a team that we saw celebrating losing a game to Man City when they had the chance to make the Champions League because
mm.
they didn't want Arsenal to win the Premier League. So I think from people complain that Arsenal fans we were being salty, but I think there was a more poignant point in terms of showing the mentality of the club and the way
Mm,
they think over there. So honestly, do we think they will become this bad? I can't say with my chest that I thought they would be 17th. For them
mm,
and Man U not to have even reached 40 points with one game to go. I mean, it's simply because we've had three of the worst promoted teams ever in the history of the Premier League.
yeah.
But there's no way we could sugarcoat any of these teams' performances and give them anything less than an F. They're literally a disgrace to the brand of the Premier League. I think that's fair to say. And then when you consider what they signed and the way they tried to position themselves as a big club, their stadium is more synonymous for concerts and NFL games than actual performances on the pitch. So, good. I mean, fair play if they win the Europa League, good. But like I said, I'll personally prefer Man United. Like at least they won it before. I know Tottenham won it in the 80s, but I just think these teams are just they're a stain on our league, and
Mm,
especially after the way Spurs fans celebrated last year losing to City when they can make the Champions League. I would love to see them not make it again. And I think it could really be the death of that club because whether you like it or not, Man United is still Man United. They have a certain pull that will never change, which
mm.
Tottenham just don't have. Can you imagine them looking at someone like Ebere Eze yesterday? If they make the Champions League now, they might try and shalaye, but in my opinion, I would just love to see them remain in the gutter. So full F. In fact, if there's another one after F, I think they'll get that too. Just shocking stuff by all
Yeah.
accounts.
Anu, over to you.
Yeah, Spurs get a U, man. Spurs get a U. I mean, jeez. But their fans are the most intolerable fan base in like the whole league, I think. It's like so crazy. And speaking about the manager, um, he's not a bad manager, but he just can't coach defense. So crazy, right? Just has no idea how to coach defense. And it's like, okay, fine, then maybe he should bring in somebody who can do that. But he's clearly not a fan of people who actually know how to coach, hence why he won't bring in a coach for the set pieces. Um, yeah, super weird from Spurs. But it's pretty much exactly what they deserve because they think they are a big team, even though they've not really proven that ever. So, um, oh my days. I think if Spurs lose to sorry, if Man United lose to Spurs on Wednesday, guys, the level of banter will be fucking insane. Fucking insane. Bro, for years and years too. For years. Like Man United will never be able to live this down, guys. They need to
Honestly.
win on Wednesday. They need to win.
Yeah, yeah, true. No doubt about it. So I think the consensus is a solid U for Spurs. It has to be a solid U for Spurs. It was a terrible season for them. And then going to the bottom three of um, the Premier League this season, I think we can grade the three of them collectively, if I'm not mistaken,
Honestly,
guys. Because in the EFL Championship last season, talking about the second division of English football, in first position was Leicester City, who are currently 18th position in the Premier League. In second position in the EFL was Ipswich Town, who are currently 19th position in the Premier League. And Southampton came into the Premier League via the playoffs. So they are 20th currently in the Premier League. Um, Managing to not be the worst team to amount the lowest amount of points by earning a draw against Manchester City. Absolutely amazing that they earned that against Manchester City. So Southampton has 12 points. Ipswich has 22 points, and Leicester City have 25. If I'm not mistaken, I
yeah,
think
right, yeah.
I got that correctly. So um, for Leicester City, a team that was under Enzo Maresca last season. Obviously, they lost Enzo Maresca, and I just think they were not just good enough. I think there is increasingly now a huge gap between the second division of English football and the Premier League, where the best of the best lock horns every week. And I think it's just up to the championship teams to uh, find a way to finance their teams to get good players to be able to compete. Because if not, you will not be able, you will not sniff anything in the EPL. I think every game in the EPL is like a final. Every team is trying to progress. Wherever you finish in the table has a financial implication as well. It has an implication on the type of players you can sign in the future. So um, I think it's very important that coming into a Premier League season, you need to be prepared. And these teams were not able to cut it. That's just the truth. And I think Leicester City also had a lot of aging players that have been a part of the team. Jamie Vardy, who obviously is retiring, he got a goal today in his final home game for Leicester City, and Wilfred Ndidi as well. Um, the core of the Leicester City team for me was old. And then talking about Ipswich, I think for Ipswich, they've got a very, very good young coach. They've got standout players like Omari Hutchinson, Liam Delap. Um, Calvin Phillips tried to do a good one for them, but I don't know. I feel like Calvin Phillips probably needs to go for deliverance or something to revive his career, with all due respect to him. And then Southampton, honestly, they were just underwhelming, uh, just really, really underwhelming. But then they've got some players talking about the likes of Mateus Fernandez and
Dibbling.
Suleiman, who have been the bright stars for them. Um,
Tyler Dibbling.
yeah, at the
And
moment.
also,
So
if you're a club that's trying to go forward and then you decide that a big signing you should make is 20 million on a goalkeeper
yeah,
or with obligation to buy, like you're not a serious
ridiculous.
institution. I'm sorry. Like Leicester City signed Steffi Mavididi and Jordan Ayew.
Mm,
Tell me what Jordan Ayew was gonna come and do. Jordan Ayew should have just stayed at Palace and won his FA Cup jejely. They even liked him there.
honestly,
But I think
honestly.
these three teams have been an absolute disgrace to the Premier League. I mean, we have to give special shout out to Southampton for it to have 12 points, 2 wins and 6 draws. I think honestly, like if they should even implement a new rule that if you get less than 20 points in the Premier League season, you're not even allowed to compete to come back the next year because you really need to go and face the wall and think about your lives. Fair enough, there's been some good things from Leicester, but really, really think that the championship and the football league need to look themselves in the eyes. They keep talking about they want a bigger share of money that the Premier League makes and all this, but you can't come to the Premier and be disgracing us. We give you parachute payments. What are you doing with the
Mm,
parachute payments?
mm.
You know? And I mean, and what even annoys me is we have quite a few Nigerians playing for these bummy clubs, man. So, like, Wilfred Ndidi, I don't know what he's doing over there. He was a free agent. He decided to resign with Leicester.
Mm,
I know he wanted a British passport and he has one now.
mm,
But how can Wilfred Ndidi say he's staying at Leicester for 8, 9 years? It makes no sense.
mm.
Now you're going back down. Will you stay again? Southampton, Joaribo should have stayed at Rangers. He didn't go. The one bright spot, Polinachu, at least he scored a few goals here and there, but let's be honest, he's not the level.
Mm.
But I think collectively we can give these three teams a solid U
Yeah.
or worse, because honestly, it's been shocking stuff. In fact, they're the
Well,
reason why at this point of the year we haven't even had any relegation battle to talk of. For you to
Mm.
be 13 points below 17th place. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Nah, horrible.
and for like Leicester and Southampton, it's like so much more saddening because you think like they would know like the level of the league, right? From
Mm.
from like so much experience that they've had, at least for like the newer team. It's like fair because it's like their first time in the league, right? But for Southampton and for Leicester, especially for Leicester, I mean, they have literally won the league, for fuck's sake.
Mm.
So I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous that they actually can't stay up. But I think the main mistake that Leicester made was like the manager change. I think Steve Cooper should have stayed.
Mm. Okay, so I think I know how to mute right there. So generally, I think from the three of us is a collective view
Absolutely.
for those bottom three clubs, talking about Leicester City, Ipswich Town, and Southampton. So definitely they're going to go back into the championship and mix it with the likes of Blackburn Rovers and Coventry, who were trying their best, to come into the Premier League this season. But I think the next three set of teams that we will see come into the Premier League next season. I think first of all, Leeds United, they won the championship, amassed 100 points, which is absolutely fantastic. Same thing with Burnley, who finished second, 100 points as well. And then, we're looking forward to the playoffs. Sunderland, Coventry, Bristol, they're up in there. And then finally, we would know who the third team would be to come into the Premier League next season to join Leeds United and
Exciting
Burnley.
stuff, though. If Sunderland versus Sheffield United, I for one hope it's Sunderland. Sheffield
Mm,
United, last few years they've come to the Prem,
mm,
especially post that one season where John Lundstram was a machine. They've been a
yeah.
disgrace to the Prem. So, let's be honest, it would be nice to see some Sunderland are what we call Barclays heritage, like Prem
True,
wise.
true. It would be nice to
So
have the Tyne-Way derby between
Yeah,
Newcastle
let
and
them come
Sunderland
play
come
against
back.
Newcastle and show some serious hate again.
Yeah,
So
we'd love that.
I don't
We'd
really
love
care,
that.
but I hope Sunderland wins. So let's see.
For me,
so
I'm
so
excited to see Leeds
um
United get back into the Premier League. To be honest, I stay in Leeds, so them being in the Premier League is good for the city. Honestly,
Absolutely.
the city always has a different buzz when they're in the league. This season that they've been out of the Championship, the city has been mellow. Honestly, if I'm trying to have fun, I always have to leave the city to have fun. So
No, it's also a one club, another one club city as well, right? My
exactly,
twin brother used to live there,
exactly,
so
exactly,
and I had the first season I ever watched football. Leeds United made the Champions League semi-final 2001. So it's crazy how far they've fallen. And also, Rafinha used to be one of my favorite players. I
yeah.
wanted him at Arsenal badly. So for your sake and for the Leeds fans, I hope it's a better season next year in the Prem for
Yeah,
sure. Culture
definitely.
club for sure.
Definitely. Anu, your thoughts
so
on the potential three teams coming into the EPL?
yeah, so and to be honest, I had planned on asking you guys, who from the
Mm.
three teams do you think will stay up?
Hmm. Tough one. Tough one. Um, I think I would tip Burnley. I would tip Burnley. Due to the structure of the team, I would tip Burnley. I wouldn't even tip Leeds United. Yeah, they've got a good manager under Daniel Farker. They've got good players, but for some reason, my mind is telling me Burnley.
I agree with your sentiment, and you raise a good point. Historically, whenever we've seen teams blow away the championship with attacking football, like Leeds did this year, 95 goals plus 65 goal difference. I don't care how big you are, you come to the Prem, you're not gonna bully the big boys with
Mm,
attacking football. So
mm,
what we've noticed, I mean, look at Ipswich Town last year and how well they played attacking wise, and what we've seen Leicester too. Where we've seen some teams get success are those teams that have been more pragmatic and smart in terms of how they set up and play. And I think Burnley, they're quite a yo-yo club. They come in and they come down. Scott Parker has Premier League experience. I mean, they conceded 16 goals in 46 games. Do you know how
mm,
insane that is?
mm.
So obviously it's not the same level as the Premier League, but I think they're better suited in terms of making the right key additions to the defensive line and playing a pragmatic style that would allow them to benefit from just having a more solid defense and then being able to get on the break with a bit more quality up top. So I like that shout for sure with Burnley. But it'll be interesting to see what Sunderland can do though, because I think from a appeal perspective, if Sunderland can make it back to the Prem, you would say they're on that Leeds trajectory where, because of their history, they could probably attract certain players. So all is in
Hmm.
the air, but I think Burnley for sure. If we had to choose, although I won't be surprised if all three go down. To be honest,
Yeah, yeah, same. I mean, um, that's a fairly good shout from you guys. But the thing is, Burnley, the manager is still Scott Parker, and I
Mm,
actually don't hate Scotty. Frankly, I actually loved him as a player, loved him as a
mm,
player. But as a gaffer, I think he has a lot to improve on. I still remember his last team uh, were like smash for nine, right? And he
mm.
like immediately got fired, right? So
Yeah.
I know he got relegated with Bournemouth or was fairly close to it, and he was relegated as well with Fulham as well. Excuse me. So the thing is, he's already been relegated twice, right?
Mm,
And he's never really stayed up, at least. I don't think so. So he actually has a lot to prove next season. I think Leeds, just because of the amount of like the money that they have, and as long as they
mm,
get the recruitment right, they certainly have a chance. Sunderland, geez, I know some they have some funds too, from the owner over there.
And also,
But
Red Bull are now part of their ownership group. I see what
oh
you
yeah,
mean about Leeds. The problem is Daniel Farker. That guy has to be
yeah,
one of
yeah.
the all-time worst managers in Premier League history. He's done this exact same thing with
I
Norwich
can remember Norwich.
twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then he comes to the Prem and he just stinks up the gap. In fact, when I saw how well Leeds were playing, I couldn't believe it was him. So the
Mhm.
problem is just that caveat of him translating to the Prem. But because
Yeah,
if there was no Daniel Farker, I would have said Leeds would be the best for sure. Because like you said, their team already, their ability to attract certain players, they even have a few players that, let's be honest, are not championship level that played in the
Yeah.
championship this year.
yeah.
So
Like
it's such an interesting
the
one,
Yonko
man.
guy is so good. He's so good.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm.
100%, 100%. But for Sunderland, it will certainly be very interesting to see who like they bring in. The one thing I will say though is I think the Premier League next season it needs to be a lot more exciting. I know
Oh
like
yeah.
a lot of times the broadcasters try and like sell this as like the most exciting league in the world type shit, but it really isn't. I think this year just Serie A especially has been very very entertaining. I think the Premier League since like past like Christmas has been fairly boring. I'm like
Yeah.
really hoping that from a recruitment side of things, from like the big clubs at least, they managed to bring in some like really good players because I think since like a pandemic, the level of the recruitment has been so poor from
Yeah.
pretty much everyone, man. Pretty much all like the top teams, and it's so funny because now it feels like the teams on like the mid table are like a lot more bold, which like
The mid-table of the
I
Prem has
mean
never been
that
stronger, which is interesting. But
no
it's quite
100%,
funny.
100%.
But what I agree with you about the excitement. But especially, I mean, if you have teams that 16th and 17th playing the Europa League final, that tells you how strong the league is. But I 100% agree with you about excitement levels.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at Syria league title race between Inter and Napoli, I've got my alarm
For
set for
sure.
tonight.
For sure.
Then the race
Yeah.
for fourth, you've got like 5 or 6 teams who still have a chance. Even the relegation
Hmm.
battle with the Venezias and Polis. So I totally agree. But one thing I will still say is if the 17th team in the Prem, the 17th team in Prem can make the Europa League final, I think the 17th best team in the Prem can beat almost every team in football apart from the true big boys, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
but to be fair, and you did make like a lot of like fantastic points by the way, a lot of fantastic points, Olu. But to be fair, and this will be a topic that we will speak on in like maybe like a month from now. Is
Yeah, for sure.
the reason that the Prem teams managed to get so far in the Europa League is because the UCL teams did not drop down this year, and it's the same for the Conference League. And I really think that's not the best idea from UEFA because I think the value of the product and like the quality has certainly gone down, right? Like for example, I still remember in Ten Hag's first season where they beat I think in the quarterfinal of the Europa League they beat might have been Barca, like 3-2 or something like that. And like for a game in the Europa League, like that is a high quality game. And I feel like we've like not really had a lot of those games this year. So I really do hope that for UEFA they like reverse that choice because I think based upon the quality of the games, it's not the best.
It's
Fair
always,
enough.
like, let's see anyway, because I remember Man United, was it 2 years ago in the semi-final? The year before in 2022, I think West Ham were was it West Ham and Rangers in the semi-final
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
of the Europa League. So it's an interesting one, but all in all, I do agree. I want to see more excitement next year for sure. But I'll be honest, I don't really give a shit. I just want Arsenal to win the Prem. Like enough is
I
enough.
know.
I'm tired of this shit.
Sincerely speaking, I think that's a brilliant consensus from the three of us, and yeah, all the best to the teams playing the EFL final, playing the EFL playoff final. Talking about Sunderland and Sheffield United. I saw a tweet on X from someone who said he has seen Sheffield United so many times in the Premier League and he's tired of them. They're not a serious team, and probably it's time to have Sunderland being a proper Barclays Premier League team. It would be nice to have them back in
Facts.
the. It would be nice to have them back in the Premier
Hmm.
League. So all the best to them in the EFL final. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for staying this long and listening to the first episode of the most entertaining podcast. Once again, my name is Ope Adebari. I've had Olu Oke with me on the show, and I've got Aanu, the producer of the podcast, with me on the show as well. Next week, we would be discussing our Premier League team of the season, Premier League player of the season, our young player of the season, signing of the season, and the flop of the season as well. Make sure to like this video once you're done. Make sure to comment and share your opinion with us. Anything you agree with, anything you don't agree with as well. We're open to criticism. Let's banter and let's grow the channel basically. And yeah, make sure to share. But most importantly as well, make sure to subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everyone.